Well, hello everyone, and welcome to Easy Mini Painting. And this time we're going to be looking at more of the Doom board game, and we're going to be knocking out the big bad Mancubi. I believe Mancubi is plural for Mancubus. I don't really know. Doesn't really matter. These guys are pretty fun to paint. They're pretty similar in terms of palette to the Revenant. So, without any further ado, let's just get on to it. Alright, so similarly to how we started the Revenants, we're actually going to start with the layer of Dragon Red for the Mancubi, and that will just make the flesh tone a little bit easier to do. And yeah, what we're going to do is we're actually just going to be using the same technique for the Revenant on the Mancubus, but we're going to go a little bit more hardcore on the dry brushing, and that should kind of make it look less like, peely skin, loose skin, and more just like sort of bloody, bloated sort of skin. That's the sort of thing that we're looking for right here. So yeah, Dragon Red, and then I did a base coat of matte black on the base. Although, like the Revenants, you might actually do it at the end of the miniature because of the dry brushing that we're going to do. We'll move on to this Barbarian Flesh color right here, and we're going to use this the same way that we did the dry brushing for the Revenants. But again, like I said, we're going to be doing it a little bit more intensely, I would say. Alright, so what we'll do is we'll take out our dry brush here. Like I said in the Revenant video too, if you don't have a dry brush, you can just use any sort of flat chisel brush, whatever works for you, whatever is your fancy, whatever works just fine. Alright, and we're going to nudge our brush into our paint puddle here, gonna wipe off most of it, and then yeah, we're just gonna go over the stomach. The stomach is probably the most important, most prominent part. And similarly to the Revenants as well, don't worry about getting some of this color on the robotic bits, the cybernetic bits, like the cyber armor and that kind of thing, because we're going to go over that with a metallic color later on. So just go ahead and do a nice liberal coating of this Barbarian Flesh tone over the Mancubus's stomach and arms. Yeah, we'll just take it one at a time here. Start with the stomach, and like I said in the Revenant video too, when it comes to dry brushing, go against all of the lines that you got. Like these big fat folds on the very front of his stomach. Make sure to go against them like this. You don't want to go, with them. You don't want to go parallel to the lines. You don't want your brush strokes to be parallel to those low contours. You want them to be perpendicular. There we go, that's the kind of thing that we're looking at right there, and that will make the guts. Like I said, if you've got that base coat of that Dragon Red on there, and then you go over the skin tone with the dry brush technique, then it'll give that sort of blubbery, bulging, fat sort of look. Alright, we're going to do the same thing with the face. It might be kind of difficult to sort of figure out where the armor begins and where the actual skin, where the armor ends and the skin tone begins. It might be a little bit difficult to kind of tell that, but I sort of think that it's just sort of this front part of the face right here, and I think that starting with these big lines here, I think that that's part of the armor, which we're going to use a metallic color for. So, let's just go over the front of the face. Alright, and that'll get the front of the face there, just like that. That's looking okay. Alright, let's get the arms too. We're going to get the fat on the arms. Alright, make sure to get the inside of the arm like this here. It's going to be kind of hard to get at that angle, but don't worry about getting any of this Barbarian Flesh tone on the cyber bits. Like I said, we're going to go over those later with the metallic color. Don't worry about it at all. You just want to make sure to get the full coverage on all of the skin. Alright, let's get the other arm here. This arm is a little bit more prominent, I would say, just because it's outstretched like this. Make sure to get the underside of this arm right here, because there's a nice prominent elbow right there with some nice skin folds that you want to make sure to get. Alright, and then with his back, he's got these big sort of little fat flaps right here, and I think that they sort of extend all the way up to his shoulder pads. I think that the shoulder blades are part of the armor, but everything underneath that up to down to the sort of, you know, metal, you know, bikini thing. That's probably not the right word for it, but everything above that and below the shoulder blades, I think, is all flesh. So let's do that. All right, there you go. That looks nice and gross. All right, now I think that the fronts of his knees here, he's got some knees, I think, that are supposed to be exposed flesh. Like so, just something as easy as that. And then, of course, the bottoms of his feet. His feet. And like I said, you really might want to save the actual base for the end of the video, just because, or for the for the end of the video, for the end of your paint job, just because you're going to get some of the flesh tone on the base itself. Louise! All right, something like that, and then we're just going to do the same thing with the other foot. All right, a little something like that. So there you go. That gives your nice skin tone much more evenly there to the whole Mancubus. Like I said, you're going to do basically all of the skin tone. You know, with the Revenant, you weren't really going over like the hips or the guts or the torso or anything like that, because you kind of wanted it to sort of keep a bloody look. And here, we don't necessarily, you know, we want the bloody base, but we really want... Oh, I forgot the side of his arm here. Uh-oh. Almost committed a foul. But yeah, we just want bubbly, gross skin. And I think that a nice red color coupled with a good flesh color can accomplish that, like so, really, really, really easily and in a really cool way. All right. Yeah, just like that. So that gives a nice look in terms of flesh and bloaty fat. Just disgusting, bloody, bloated fat that the Mancubus has. I think that looks pretty darn cool. So we're just going to do the same thing with the other one. The last thing that I don't think I mentioned just yet, but I would go ahead and get the inside of these sort of shoulder pads right here. I think that is supposed to be sort of a skin tone, those little bits right there. So these sort of kind of scales on each shoulder. Go ahead and go over those as well, or at least I would. You don't have to, I mean, whatever you want to do. That's the thing, is that when it comes to the Mancubi, it's just sort of whatever you want to do in terms of where the cybernetic parts end and the skin tone begins. You know, do whatever you want, do whatever you feel is appropriate. That's the biggest thing about mini painting, is that you get to do whatever it is that you want. That's the big thing to remember and to keep in mind. Okay, so I think that's pretty much all that I want to do with the skin tone, just like that. So I'm going to rinse off my brush. All right, and the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to move on to all of the cybernetic bits. Now, this is going to take a while because this is where the most mass is, I would say. It's going to be the arm cannons as well as the chest piece, some, you know, the back and the leg, you know, all that good stuff. And we'll go ahead and use our plate mail metal for that. I think that will work out just fine. Now, there's one thing that you can sort of keep in mind when you're doing this, and that's that the sort of tubes coming out of the shoulders and going down the arms, the original 3D model has those sort of, you know, inner layers of the tubes glowing, it looks like. You know, like these kind of parts right here would be glowing with sort of a vibrant yellow and red sort of thing. You can do that if you want to, but you don't have to at all. I think that if you just want to get these table ready and you don't want to waste too much time on them, I think that you can just go over all of the cybernetic components with this plate mail color, and I think it'll be just fine. Alright, now in terms of the face, I'm going to leave off the big sort of mandibles right there, and we're going to go just underneath the chin. Just underneath the face. Like so, alright. We'll come up. Alright, and we're going to go ahead and go just over the head. Just like this. I'm going to bring it back down to the other side of the face. There we go, just like that. So you just want to work your way around the head, basically. Yeah, there we go. That's looking pretty cool. Alright, and we'll get the bits that sort of meld into the arms. If you want to use a smaller brush when it comes to applying the paint close to the areas of the skin tone, that's fine, that's up to you. I'm just using kind of a big brush to knock it out a little bit faster. Alright, now there are going to be these sort of tubes coming down from his chest. Alright, and there are going to be some sort of bolts surrounding them too. So make sure you get those. Like so. That's the kind of thing right there. Alright, let's get back up to the shoulder. Alright, and then like I said, we're just going to go ahead and go over all of the tubes with this steel color. But if you really want to, for, you know, like I said, for extra credit or something like that, you can go over the inner layers of those tubes with like a yellow color or a glowing red or something like that, whatever you prefer. Alright, let's get these shoulder blades on the back. Alright, there's kind of a little piece of something that extends just above his stomach and right below his chest, sort of like a sternum kind of piece. I think that that's cybernetic, so we'll go over that. Just like that. Okay, and we've pretty much gone all the way around the whole top half of the Mancubus there, and then the rest of it is all just going to be filling everything in. We're going to go ahead and go around the center pieces of these shoulders, though, these sort of pauldrons. They're almost like reverse pauldrons. They're just sort of like exposed points where some skin can show. And the other thing, too, is that if you want to just go over the that particular spot, you know, like the spots on either side there, you just want to go over that with the steel color. I think that'll be fine. It's whatever you prefer. Alright, so there we go. So now we've got the top of that Mancubus nice and shiny, nice and metallic. Let's move on to the legs. Let's knock out the... Oh, and I almost forgot the side tubes here. Like I said, I got them on the other side, but I didn't quite get them on the other side there. So sometimes I've mentioned this before, and I'll, you know, mention it for as many times as I need to, because I struggle to remember myself sometimes. Typically, whenever you're in between steps, when you're going from like one part of a miniature to the other, it's always best to give your miniature just a little bit of a once-over, like I like to call it, where you just look over it, generally speaking, once, and you just look for anything that might be missing. You know, like I missed the inside of the arm, you know, on that other one there a little while ago. Like I missed the tops of the shoulders there. It helps to just sort of occasionally take a step back and see what you have and assess the situation and say, oh, I forgot to get a particular point. Let's go back over with that, because it's easier to do that while you have the paint still out and with the paint still on your brush than it is to do it later. So that's just something to keep in mind. All right, now I kind of think that the thing on his side here, like on his rib cage almost, I think that this is cybernetic, although you could interpret that as being fleshy. So if you want to go over that sort of side rib cage area using, you know, the barbarian skin color, that is entirely up to you. It is whatever you want to do. And I think it'll kind of wrap around to the front, like so. Might be a little bit difficult to get at too with this angle, but we'll just do what we can, and I think that that will be just fine. I think that that angle is a little bit difficult to see from a top-down perspective anyway, so I wouldn't worry too much about it. All right, let's do the same thing with the other side here. Oh, I think Louise is back. Aren't you back, Boo? My cat's back. She's on the table. We'll see if she gets in front of the camera. Louise. Lou. Alright, so now we'll just continue on with the legs. Alright, and then we'll get the sort of piece coming up the front of his groin like this. You might use a somewhat more detailed brush in order to get the little sort of side antenna pieces coming off to the side like that. So I'll do that after I'm done with the large brush. But that's just something to keep in mind to make sure that is there. Alright, and then I imagine the heel pieces here are basically just all armor. Alright. That's looking pretty good like that. Just want to get underneath the tummy. Underneath the fat flaps there. Kind of hard to get at that angle, but that's okay. Just do your best. Won't be a huge deal if it's not perfect. We're not striving for perfection. We're just striving for easy, accessible paint jobs that anybody can do. Alright. Alright, and then we're going to do the arm cannons here. Alright, so there's one arm cannon down, so now I just need to get the other one. Alright, and then that is pretty much it for all of the cybernetic components. So the big things... and I'm going to go over with a small brush to make sure to get those little, like I said, the sort of antennas coming up the bottom part of that sort of groin piece or cod piece or whatever. And yeah, so make sure you get the arms, obviously on either side. They kind of go all the way around, so just make sure you get them there. The chest piece, and that kind of goes and extends all the way to the back, to the side shoulders here, as well as the back and the back shoulder blades. And then make sure that you get the sort of, I don't know, like nest part, I guess you could say, as well as the actual cuffs on the legs, and they go all the way around. Make sure to leave the knees exposed, and then the heels, and then that's pretty much it. So we're going to knock out the other one, and then we're going to move on. Alright, and there you go. So now we've got the nice metallic coloration on our Mancubi there, and they're looking pretty cool. Alright. So now we've got all of the major work done with the Mancubi. Now we're just going to work on some details. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to take out some Elven Flesh, and we're just going to go ahead and dot those teeth. Alright, and we'll just use that regular Army Painter brush that comes with our Mega Paint set. Like I said, you just kind of want a nice sharp point on the tip of your brush, just kind of like that. And luckily the Mancubus teeth are pretty big. They're pretty prominent, so it's not terribly difficult to get them knocked out like this. And we're just gonna paint over, you know, the fronts and just get them nice and prominent. Get them to stand out a little bit more. There we go, so we get some teeth like that. And we'll get the big sort of fangs on the side. These weird sort of mandible things that these Mancubi have. They're kind of weird, but a nice little touch there. Alright, and then we'll get the bottom row of teeth. Alright, just something like that. Alright, so once you get the Mancubus's teeth down, that's pretty much all that we want to do with the face details, apart from the eye. And to do that eye, we're just going to use some good old-fashioned jungle green right here. It's just a nice bright green color, basically. That's all that you want for the eye, and you're not going to need a lot of paint. And just don't be afraid to get into the eye. It might be kind of tricky just because the sort of pieces of armor or chitin that he's got on either side of his face might be a little bit difficult to get into, so you got to work your brush in between those, but it shouldn't be a huge deal. There you go, that's pretty good for that eye right there, and we're just going to do the same thing to the other one. Uh-oh, we've got another kitty on the table. Louise. You're being annoying. Well, there you go. That's the second eye right there. All right, and the next thing that we're going to move on to is we're going to move on to a Quickshade for all of the armor. So we're going to take out the dark tone. We're just going to take out the black Quickshade, basically. And we're going to use that, and we're going to put that over all of the armor in the same way that we did the Revenants. Okay, and you might do the thing, too, where you water your shade down just a little bit. Just take your brush like this, just dip it into your water like that, and then mix it in with your Quickshade there, and that'll just water it down a little bit, make it last a little bit longer, and make it a little bit easier to handle. And you're just going to go over all of the armor. Now, another thing that we're going to do while we're here is you're actually just going to go ahead and put this in their mouth a little bit. And that will just, you know, similar to what we did to the Revenants, just add a little bit of, oh, shoot, contrast. Dang it, words failing me for a second. Contrast for the mouth compared to the rest of the face. And it also might just help to clean up some of the little details from when you were painting the teeth. If you got like some teeth on some of the gums or on some of the other surrounding teeth or anything like that, that'll just help clean that up a little bit. Just like that. There you go. That looks good. Alright, so now we've got all of the shoulders and the chest. Let's do the legs. Oh, I just realized I think I forgot to get the bit on his side here, on his ribcage there. You know what? That's okay. I'm just going to go ahead and leave it. We'll use this as an example of... Sometimes you might make the odd, little tiny mistake when you're painting your miniatures. But you know what? I don't think it's really going to matter that much. It might be a little tiny thing that might bother you a little bit when you look at it. But the way that I see it is that don't let it bother you. And when you're playing your game and when you're playing it with your friends and all that, I don't think that anybody's really going to notice, and I don't think it's going to take away from the overall look of the painted miniature itself. So I'm just going to leave that ribcage unpainted right there, that little rib thing over there, and I think that it will look just fine overall. Consider this sort of an exercise of, don't necessarily obsess over every single little detail, just be happy with what you have. It's a nice little exercise just to sort of have for now. Alright, so now we've got the legs and the groin and the chest, so now we just need to do the arm cannons. Alright, so now we've got one of them completely done with all of his dark tone right there, so now we're just going to do the same thing to the other one. After you get this tone on there, I am going to let them completely dry. It is pretty important to let them dry before we move on to the next step, because we're going to start doing some details with the actual armor and the arm cannons and all that. So let these dry before you move on, and then move on. Alright, now in terms of getting your miniatures table ready, that's probably all that you really need to do. Those look pretty solid. Then you would, just want to follow up with whatever you want to do with the bases. Oh, we do want to actually paint over those sort of toenail talon kind of things with black. We'll do those shortly here. And then you can just go over with the varnish if you want to use those or whatever you want to do. But we want to do something a little bit extra, or we want to go a little bit above and beyond. We want to do some just, little fun details. So what we're going to do is we're going to take out some pure red. This is just a really nice bright red color. It's a little bit more bright and pronounced than dragon red is. If you just want to use one color, you can probably use dragon red for everything, but that's up to you. All right, and then we're just going to take a, let's see here. I'm going to take my standard Reaper brush right here. I'm going to, you just want to use a little bit of a detailed brush for this. Not hugely detailed, but you just want a nice sharp point like that. And what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead over the center chest piece, and we're going to add that little sort of like light design that he's got on either side of the chest piece. So I'm just going to do this freehand. We're just going to go a little bit around the crescent moon sort of shape here. Don't be afraid to make it somewhat thick like that. And then there's some sort of points coming in. Just like that. We're going to do the same thing on the other side. All right. That kind of thing right there. It doesn't have to be perfect, but just the general sort of shape. We're going to do that with the other one. All right, just a little something like that. That's what we're looking for. All right, now we're also going to use this a little bit on the actual arm cannons. What we're going to do is we're just going to go ahead and get like basically the entirety of the edge of the barrel like this. All right, that's the kind of thing that you're looking for right there. You just want to get the end of that barrel nice and red. We'll do the same thing with the one up here. Yeah, you can just go over the entirety of the inside of it with red like that. Same thing with the other one. And then on either side of each barrel, there's an extra little sort of thing here. Just something like that. And then the same thing on the other side. All right. So now we've just got the arm cannons nice and red like that. We're going to do the same thing with the other one. Toki, did you just step right onto my paint? Oh. Look at that. Toki. Got paint all over yourself now, you silly boo. Alright. So after we've got all of the red down for all of our arm cannons and our chest piece, we're going to rinse our brush off, and then we're going to move on to a nice bright yellow color. So what we'll do is we'll take out some Daemonic Yellow here, just some... Ah, jeez. When I wiped the paint off my cat's paw. And so we're just going to use this, a nice bright yellow color, to really accentuate those light patterns. Now, if possible, try to get an even sharper point. You might even water your paint down a little bit just to sort of thin the paint down even more. And what you're going to do is you're just going to go over basically the centers of each light pattern with this Daemonic Yellow color. And I'll add just a little bit of extra detail to what you were doing. That kind of thing right there, and that just gives a little bit of that extra little chef's kiss for your miniature. Look at that, isn't that cool? That's beautiful. All right, that's what we want to see. Like I said, you just want a little tiny bit of paint onto the tip of your brush. Barely any at all. You can see what little amount of paint is on the tip of the brush there. You don't need very much at all. All right, there you go. Beautiful. All right, now we're going to do a similar thing with the actual arm cannons. We'll start with the actual ends of the barrels here. What we'll do is we'll just basically dot the center of each barrel with this yellow color. There we go, just like that. Easy as that. That's all you need to do. And then we'll just dot the center of each of the little side barrels there. And like that. There we go. And that just adds a little bit of color to the actual barrels. All right, and there you go. So that's pretty much all that we want to do right there. And we're just going to do the same thing to the other one. Uh-oh, I think I rushed myself. I forgot to get the red barrel, the red on the barrel right there. Just go over that really quickly. There we go. All right. All right, and there we go. So now, oh, rushing myself again. I keep forgetting things. Take your time. I'm failing to learn from my own lessons earlier, which is to take your time and to just make sure to really look over everything that you've done to make sure that you haven't missed anything, because yeah, it's you can always go over things later on, but you're here to have fun. You're not here to rush things. You're here to just put out solid, time-efficient miniatures. Don't rush yourself. Just have good techniques and planning, and you'll do just fine. I keep just wanting to move on to the next thing. Move on, move on, move on, move on. And I need to just take a deep breath and slow down a little bit. Okay, there we go. All right, that looks great. So now we've got our Mancubi with all of our red and yellow going on. The last thing that we're going to do is I'm going to take some matte black right here. You can save this for the very last step if you want, basically the bases right there. We're just going over the bases again, and we're also going over those sort of toenail talon things that they've got. All right, don't stress yourself out too much over what brush you use. Just use any old brush here. Will probably be just fine. Just like that, easy as that. All right, and then you're just going to go over the surrounding areas of the base, just to touch up on all of those spots where you did your dry brushing all around there. And like I was saying earlier too, if you haven't already painted your bases by now, if you want them to be black, just go over all of the bases right now. All right, there you go. And then the very last thing that we're going to do, and I'll just show this off camera, but I'll show you the finished result when we're done here, is that we're going to take a layer of gloss varnish, and we're going to go over the actual Mancubi with that, and then over the bases, we're going to go over with matte varnish, a very similar way to what we've done with the previous miniatures. And if you do that, if you use the two different varnishes, that will help separate the talons from the bases. Basically, if you go over the bases with a matte varnish, and then you go over the talons with the rest of the miniature with a gloss varnish, that will help to sort of tell them apart a little bit and makes it look, you know, right now they're kind of hard to tell, you know, they just blend into that base so much, but like I said, the changes in varnishes will help to separate those, and then you'll be done.
Alright, well there you go everybody, those are the Mancubi from the Doom board game. If you liked the video, go ahead and throw it a like. If you want to see the rest of the Doom board game being painted, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. There's not a lot else to do actually, it really just comes down to the Barons of Hell and the Cyber Demon, and then we're going to be done. After that, I'm probably going to move on to the Resident Evil 2 board game, so you have that to look forward to. I'm considering doing one video in between those, but we'll see how I feel about that as we come. If you want, you can follow me on Twitter. I'm on Twitter at PaintAMini. That's my Twitter handle, and I am also on Instagram with the same handle, which is PaintAMini. So yeah, you can go there. On Instagram, I'll post more just straight up miniature stuff, all of my painting and hobby stuff, that kind of thing. Whereas on Twitter, I'll do a little bit more. You know, on Twitter, I'm a little bit more myself. So you know, whatever. I'm going on for way too long. So thank you everybody for watching. We'll see you next time on Easy Mini Painting. Have a good night.